All right, first you're going to check over your 1.4 angles worksheet that we did in class. So you can flip through here, check your answers, see how you did. Press pause when you want to check answers, and then press play when you're ready for the next slide. I'll click through them pretty quick here. Okay, so today we're going to talk about angle relationships. So we talked about the types of angles. We talked about acute, obtuse, right, straight, reflex, parts of angles, how to label them, all that kind of stuff. And now we can talk about what relationships they have to each other. So adjacent angles are angles that are right next to each other. So angles with a common vertex. Ignore my handwriting, it's really bad on this tablet. So angles with a common vertex and one common side. Okay, it basically means that they're next to each other. So if we were to draw a picture of adjacent angles, something like this would be adjacent angles, because you can see one angle right here, you see one angle right here, and they share this side in the middle, so that makes them adjacent because they're sharing that common side. A linear pair are two angles that form a line, so angles that form a line and are adjacent. I think I like this typing thing a little bit better. You can probably read it a little better too. Cool. Okay, so if I were to draw a picture of that, we draw a line, and then if we have two angles that create that line, it's called a linear pair. So you can see an angle here, and together they form that straight angle or that line. Remember, they're adjacent, so they're right next to each other. Remember, you can always pause this if you need to write down. If I'm talking too fast, you can rewind, fast forward. Pretty cool. All right, so our next one down here is vertical angles. So vertical angles are angles with a common vertex and whose sides are formed by same lines. So angles with a common vertex and whose sides are formed by the same lines. Basically, it means that they're across from each other. I'll show you what that means in a second. So that would be like if we had two pictures that look like this. We have two lines that intersect. These angles that are across from each other are considered vertical. So this angle up here, this angle down here are considered vertical. So this angle and this angle. Same is true the other way. This angle over here and this angle over here, they're considered vertical to each other. So vertical doesn't always mean up and down, it just means across from each other in this case. Another important part about vertical angles is that they're equal in measure. So let me draw a new picture so I can show you this. We had some vertical angles. If this angle was 70 degrees, the one that's vertical to it, so this bottom one, would also be 70 degrees. If this one over here is 110 degrees, the one vertical from it will also be 110 degrees. They're equal. Okay, so these are a linear pair, right? We have two angles that together they form a line. We know that a linear pair or a line is the same thing as a straight angle, and we talked about the other day that a straight angle is 180 degrees. So some of your questions you're going to see today is going to ask you to find out what that question mark is. So if we know together they add up to 180 degrees, what is that question mark? Well, we just take 180 minus 60. So this angle over here would be 120 degrees, because together they have to equal 180 because they're a straight angle and a line. This one, we're talking about vertical angles, right? We can see they're across from each other. So this is just saying if this one's 75, so is its vertical angle, which is over here, would also be 75 degrees. Perpendicular, this is on a different page. Let's see here. Perpendicular is on the next page, page 6. Perpendicular are when lines intersect and form right angles. So when lines intersect and form right angles. Okay, so that would be like this. If I have two lines that intersect and they have right angles that are formed, those would be perpendicular lines. Complementary angles. So back to that last page. We're back on page 5. Complementary angles are when angles add up to 90 degrees. So two angles whose measures add to 90 degrees. So if you have two angles, let's draw a line through here, line through here. So let's put an angle right here. If we take a right angle and we split it, we know they're going to add up to 90 degrees. So like let's pretend that this little one is 60 and this one's 30. So together they add up to 90 degrees, so they're considered complementary. Angles don't have to be adjacent, so they can be adjacent. They don't have to be. An example of ones that aren't adjacent, so aren't next to each other, would be like if we drew angles like this and we said that's 70 degrees, and we drew another one and we said like that's 20 degrees. They still add up to 90, but they aren't next to each other like this picture, so they'd be still complementary. Supplementary is pretty much the same thing, except instead of adding up to 90, it's going to add up to 180. So two angles whose measures add up to 180 degrees. Okay, pictures can be the same way. They don't have to be adjacent, but they can be, so can be adjacent. So if I drew ones that were adjacent, we know it forms a linear pair or a straight angle or a line. So let's say this is 100 degrees and this is 80 degrees. Those add up to 180, so it means they're supplementary, but they don't have to be adjacent. We could have a picture that looks something like this, a 60 degree and maybe a 120 degree angle.